I'm here to tell you there will be times in your life where you wish that you would have prepared yourself better to influence others, whether you're going to be a leader, whether you're going to be a mom or a dad or whatever it is that you're going to be. You need to mark up your books so that you can be prepared to go back to them and help somebody with some of the ideas that you learned in your books. It's imperative that you annotate and you mark up, and maybe you don't even know how to do that, but there's lots of tips and tools that we'll learn all throughout the year. But the one thing I want you to remember is, bottom line, it is imperative that you write up in your books. And I'm not just saying that you just do it for me. I'm saying that you do it for you. And here's an example. So I went into my Odyssey book, and I'm not sure what page this is on. This is page 113. No, it looks like that's that's line 200. So the page number is above the picture here. Oh yeah, there it is, 113. And this is the edition by Penguin Classics, translated by Robert Fagles. And you are going to be adding all sorts of information for yourself. For instance, this Greek code is something that you're going to learn as you study this book. Greek code just means it's like this cultural unwritten law that people just know. For instance, a code that we have in our culture is that when you are given a calling, you accept it. Or you don't accept it, but you think, really, are you not accepting it because you have fears? And then you face your fears, talk to your leaders about the fears that you have with that, and discuss, and then you realize, oh, if I replace that fear with faith, the Lord really wants me to do this calling. I'm going to accept it because it is an invitation to change. That's kind of the code that we have. Now, there are times in our lives where we have a good reason to not accept a calling. For instance, here's an example. When I was 8 months pregnant with one of my children, my fifth child, she was a daughter, a member of the bishopric came over to visit me and asked if I was probably not 8 months pregnant. Excuse me. I was probably 5 or 6 months pregnant. He came over and asked if I would be willing to be the camp director for girls' camp. And I looked at the calendar and I thought, well, I'm going to be 8 months pregnant when I am the camp director, and I'm not going to be able to lead the hikes very well. I'm not going to be able to do very much. And I had a really good reason. And I said, that is so noble. And I'm sure the Lord wants me to someday be camp director. But I'm telling you, my situation with being that far along in my pregnancy won't allow me to be the best camp director. I won't be able to do that. And so he realized, oh, that's true. So they called somebody else. It wasn't out of fear, but it was out of really looking at my situation. What am I going to be like, when I'm this big and I wouldn't be able to really serve the girls well. So I said no. But going back to this idea, that's a code for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, right? We accept our calling because we know God wants us to grow in it. And if we don't accept it, we have to figure out if we're not accepting it for a real good, true reason, or if it's out of fear, and then discuss those things. So now that we've kind of figured out what a code is, one of the Greek codes is, let me see if I can make this bigger. I can. So the Greek code is, if someone kills your father, it is now your duty to kill your father's murderer. Okay. So way back then, in 7 or 800 BC, there wasn't a lot of light and knowledge in the world about murdering. It just kind of was normal. So that was a code. So we need to look through the glasses of the Greek code to understand these things. We don't need to judge them that they're wrong, because that's taking the year 2020 and looking at it as wrong. No, we can't. We've got lots more light and knowledge now. We know that war is not good. We already know that we're supposed to turn the other cheek. There's so many things that we've learned since then. So we just need to remember that the Greek code was this, okay? And so in this particular place in the book, Homer is trying to help Odysseus remember some of these things. And he uses a story from one of the plays at that time. Have you ever heard of Agamemnon and Orestes? These are plays that we will read them later on in this semester. And if you're watching this way later, you're going to learn this in the Greek year, of course. So I've got something here. I've got Orestes took revenge. I'm reminding myself that there is a Greek code here let's read this. They say the Myrmidons, those savage spearmen, led by the shining son of lion-hearted Achilles, traveled home unharmed. Philoctetes, the gallant son of Poeas, safe as well. Idomeneus brought his whole contingent back to Crete. Now, Crete is the island in Greece where Odysseus is from. So Idomeneus brought his whole contingent, his group, back to Crete, all who'd escaped the war. I'm talking about the Trojan War. The sea snatched none from him. So no one was lost at sea. But Atreus' son Agamemnon, you yourselves, even in a far-off Ithaca, must have heard how he returned, how Aegisthus hatched the king's horrendous death. So Aegisthus, I think it's Aegisthus, kills the king, okay? But what price he paid in blood, in suffering, how fine it is when a man is brought down to leave a son behind. So Orestes took revenge. And I write up here, who is Orestes? Well, it's Agamemnon's son. Agamemnon is killed by Aegisthus. I think it's his brother-in-law. Agamemnon's son, who heroically took revenge on his father's murderer. Now, if I've got the Greek code here, I'm going to remember, okay, why is Orestes killing Aegisthus? It's because the Greek code was that, right? So now we're going to compare it to Odysseus's son. Odysseus is trying to travel home from Troy from this war. And his name is Telemachus. And I've got Telemachus is schooled how his emotions should be by watching these people. He watches Nestor, Mentor, Menelaus, and Zeus. And he's remembering these stories and remembering the Greek code, and he doesn't know where his father is. Okay, so he's trying to figure these things out. These people are trying to tell Telemachus he needs to be involved and responsible. He doesn't know that his father's dead yet, and of course he doesn't know the murderer, and his father isn't dead, by the way. But these people are trying to help Telemachus grow up and to become responsible. He's about 20 years old. His mom is being bothered by suitors who are trying to marry her, but Penelope stays true, wants to wait for Odysseus. Telemachus is not being responsible by helping his mom, and they're trying to teach him the Greek code because he hasn't had a father. His father's been gone since he was 8 or 9 years old. Okay, so he hasn't learned these things. So all these other people around him are trying to teach him the Greek code. And Nestor and Mentor and Menelaus and Zeus, of course, is the god. So they're all trying to teach Telemachus that even in our nasty situations, we must do what needs to be done. Be your own Orestes, he's saying. Don't take a revenge, but just start maybe ousting out those suitors. And you'll read a little bit more about that in the book. If you are in this situation, be like him, they're saying. You've got to be like Orestes. You've got to take responsibility. Of course, in our day, we don't take responsibility by killing somebody else who's killed our father. But the bottom line is you take responsibility, right? There's more like knowledge on how we take responsibility. We've got another note here. Orestes, faced with having to kill his mother, she is the murderer, by the way, he still has the gumption to do what needs to be done. Okay? So actually his mother was the one that told Aegisthus to kill him. So basically he's after his mother. And I hope that makes sense to you. This on the side is kind of hard to read, but it says, my own belief is not to take revenge. The Greek code is not based on my God's laws. So here I have argued with Homer in this, right? So I've got the Greek code. I understand why they're doing. I understand that there's a need to be responsible. But over here I'm saying, okay, I'm not going to take revenge, but I'm going to be responsible. We're going to be responsible down here. Does that make sense? So now whenever I need to talk to a child about being responsible, I can tell him the story of Telemachus. I can tell him the story of Penelope being bombarded by these suitors who want to marry her, and she wants to be faithful to her husband. And Telemachus, who's grown up without a father and without an example, has all these men around him trying to teach him to be responsible. And he takes it on, and you will see he's going to learn. This is kind of a Bildungsroman, Roman, which is a book that is kind of like a growing up book. So Telemachus is going to learn to grow up, and these men are helping him. By the time Odysseus comes back, Telemachus is ready to fight with his father and to rid his household of these suitors that are trying to marry Penelope. There's a whole bunch of different stories besides just that helps him to grow up. But do you see why you want to start writing all sorts of notes in your books? As you do, you are going to know so much more. You're going to be ready for conversations that you have later in your life. And believe me, I didn't know all of this until I maybe read some other things. Like for instance, you might not know as much about this page as I do. But later on, when we read about Orestes, we can actually go back to the Odyssey, and we can add in some ideas so that we're connecting all of our books, and we've got some interdisciplinary learning going on here. So you can do this, and you'll want to do this. You might not know how important it is now, but believe me, if you pray to Heavenly Father to have experiences of sharing your ideas, He will give them to you, and you will be an instrument in helping bring the great ideas back into this world. How many times can you learn to be responsible if you just think of Telemachus, or if you just think of these men who was trying to teach Telemachus to be responsible? In my mind, I'm thinking of Frankenstein. So Victor's Frankenstein, who creates this monster who's not responsible. And I'm doing a recording right now. And so we're both in this now. So we think of Telemachus, or we think of Frankenstein as not responsible. He needed he needed to know this to be able to set in stone, I need to be responsible. This is not what I should be doing, creating a monster. Anyway, good luck. Annotate all your books as much as you can. And even if you make a mistake, there is always, where is this? There is always whiteout that you can cover up and rewrite. Don't worry about making mistakes in your book. Write as neatly as you can and as well as you can, and then change things up as you learn, and your books become your greatest asset because they have all the ideas. Have a great day.